Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, today we are going to talk about possible effect of conflict with Iran and how this could affect home prices. What we're going to do is we have all this historic data, and we're specifically just going to look at stuff that happened in the Middle East, basically from the 1970s, because this effectively is like the biggest effect here is the supply of oil. Generally, wars in the Middle East tend to disrupt oil flow around the world.
Oh, that sounds so boring.
I know, it sounds super boring. So then tell them an exciting way what we're going to talk about. And then I have a good story to tell you.
Okay.
Which I might not tell you, actually.
Oh my God. All right. So no, what we're really talking about is, look, we all know what happened with Iran on Saturday. We dropped a couple B2 pills down their throats. And what does this have to do with you? Well, how does it impact real estate, right? We all either live in a home or own a home or both. And how does that impact us? And that's what this is about. Looking a little bit back at how similar events impacted real estate so that you can understand how this will affect you in the short term and in the long term, and you can make informed decisions for yourself. That's what we're talking about.
Now, I do happen to have a relationship with the Iranian air defense system. But I don't think Juana knows about it, but I don't think I really should talk about it. So we're going to skip it. But in case you were wondering, yes, I actually did have an incursion with Iranian air defense forces a long time ago, 34 years ago. So
move on, real estate.
We'll move on to real estate. Okay. So let's start with this. We're going to go back. We're going to talk about what happened we'll start with the Yom Kippur War, 1973. It was two things that happened. It was Yom Kippur War in Israel, Arab oil embargo. At the time, oil prices quadrupled. So it went from $3 a barrel to $12. Maybe it's all adjusted for inflation. So $3 to $12 per barrel. This triggered global stagflation, high inflation, low growth. U.S. inflation surged to 11% by 74. Federal Reserve raised interest rates, leading to a recession, 73, 75. Stock markets, S&P 500 fell 40% over 2 years. Juana, at that time, now you were in Romania still during this. You probably didn't even know what was going on. So how does this affect, what are some factors that would affect how inflation and a recession affect real estate in the U.S.? Because then we're going to talk about what actually happened in real estate, home prices specifically.
Okay, so inflation, that's prices going up, right? So of course, inflation makes everything more expensive, including housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then oil prices going up, well, that feeds inflation and also makes energy for other uses more expensive. And that again makes housing more expensive, makes everything more expensive. When you have inflation, then interest rates go up because government is trying to get inflation down by taking money out of the system. So we kind of end up in a bad spot, which is where we ended up in the late 70s, early 80s. We ended up with inflation. We ended up with super high interest rates by 1982. And during all this time, what's happening with housing? Well, I know most of us were not in the housing market at the time because some of us weren't even alive and some of us were barely little kids. But I can tell you what happened historically, that the price of homes went up. So, and we've talked about this a lot, that when you've got a recession, home prices tend to go up, inflation, prices for everything go up, including homes. And then when you kind of fast forward through several of these types of events, so we can talk about what happened in the 80s. There are similar events in the 80s. Of course, we had the first Gulf War in the 90s. We had the same sort of thing happen, and then we had Iraq and Afghanistan, and so through all these things, the same kind of pattern has gone through, right? The first thing that happens is government spending money, maybe some inflation, maybe a recession, interest rates, depending on what's happening. The Federal Reserve kind of plays with those, and throughout the whole thing, home prices go up. Why? Because we all need to live somewhere. I say this on a lot of the videos. We all need to live somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I think, fast forwarding to what's happening to us today. So what can you expect?
Okay, this was the result of 1973 Yom Kippur War, Arab oil embargo, high inflation, rising interest rates. Mortgage rates got up to 9%. This was the highest they'd ever been in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we had 2 or 3% rates in the 50s. Not by the 74, we have 9%, which was half of the peak in the early 80s. Reduced affordability, slowing home price growth. Even with 9% mortgage rates, home prices grew modestly from 32.9 in 1973 to 35.9. That was a 9% increase in 1 year, but it lagged inflation. Housing starts dropped due to high borrowing costs, economic uncertainty. So remember, there's this automatic thing that happens in the economy because the gut reaction is, but Todd, if things get bad, then home prices go down. But what are some inputs to home prices for existing homes? Well, new homes being built. If you have less new homes being built, then that means if people want to buy a house, they have to go back to resale homes, right? If you have, a bad economy and Fed is maybe cutting rates, which they have done in most recessions, then mortgage rates tend to drop. In this case, home prices went up, but they didn't go up as much as we had inflation during the time. And distinctly remember that these couple of years, I was a kid then, but I do remember home prices going up quite a bit because the house we bought in 1970 for $24,000 was $32,000 5 years later. So even though this was fortunately my family was in the military at the time. My parents were, so my dad was. So we were sort of insulated by this because he had a job. And it didn't really affect us that much. Okay, here's the next one, Iran-Iraq War. This was 1980, 1988. Iran was using all of the weapon systems that we had sold them. They had IHawk, which was a surface-to-air missile, and I know a lot about that. And the F-14s. That's, if you saw the Top Gun 2 movie, we sold them F-14s. Okay, it didn't help them that much because we just had 8 years of fighting each other, but they didn't really accomplish very much. Oil prices doubled initially in 1980 due to the Iran Revolutionary War, Brent crude peaking at $39 per barrel. What really happened was 81, 82, we entered a recession, Fed funds rate 20%. So when people complain today about the Fed's fund being like, what is it, 4.5 or something right now? It was federal funds rate was 20%. Mortgage rates were 16 to 18%. Inflation fell from 13% in 1980 to 3.2 by 1983. This is what happened to the housing market. Despite like 15% plus mortgage rates, U.S. median home prices, they did stagnate because they only went from 62.9 to 67.8. Okay, so they did appreciate about $5,000, but that was below inflation. So you've got, 18% inflation, home prices going up 10%, but they're not keep up. But the nominal prices of homes are going up, right? Okay, all right. And then by 1985, 79.9 was the median home. Okay, Gulf War. This is where I was involved a little bit. I have some stories. I can't talk about them, unfortunately. Okay, economic impact. Oil prices spiked 100%. Do you remember Gulf War? Where were you when it happened? Do you remember where you were the first night?
Yes.
Where were you?
I was in Reno.
What were you doing? There's this thing where everyone can remember where they were. Like, for me, it was the moon landing. That's the first thing I remember. I don't remember JFK. I wasn't born yet. The Challenger. This is not a joke. When the Challenger blew up, I was at the Naval Academy. We had a Challenger. We had a big poster of the Challenger in our room at the Academy. That was the picture of the space shuttle because my roommate and I both wanted to be astronauts. So we had the Challenger, and that was the one that blew up.
I was in high school. I was in the lunchroom, and I saw it blow up.
You saw that? Okay, you saw it in high school. I saw it in college. Where were you when the Gulf War, like when the thing happened, when all the
So
like
remember,
CNN.
with the time difference, it was daytime.
Okay.
It was daytime here. So
Right.
So I was actually watching it at work.
Okay. I was watching it live.
Yes, you were.
And I don't mean live, I mean live. I was watching it. Okay. Oil prices spiked. U.S. entered a mild recession 1990 to 91. Of course, this was the famous recession that got Bush first unelected, right? Oil shock, consumer confidence, inflation rose moderately. Mortgage rates were back at 10%. This is the point at when mortgage rates, this is the last time I think mortgage rates peaked, because from 1990 all the way until a couple years ago, mortgage rates, basically, we had this 30-year period of mortgage rates sort of slowly declining. Okay, all right. Housing market. Home price growth slowed. U.S. median home prices rose from 122.9 to 127 in 1991. Remember, they rose, but they fell 3.3%. They were 3.3% below inflation. So in real nominal dollars, home prices went up. Real dollars, home prices were a little less. Housing starts fell again. Why is this, Wanda? Why would housing starts fall in a recession or when there's bad economic times?
So the thought is that there are going to be less people being able to afford homes, so builders will pull back until there are more consumers willing to purchase a home.
Okay. And then what about resale homes? Why do people keep like putting their houses on the market?
Because people still have life events that cause them to need to move, either to downsize, move to a larger home, move to a different geographic area. People are born, they die, get divorces, get married, whatever. I mean, life goes on.
Okay. Next war, Iraq War, 2003. It says to 2011, but it was really the first part of it was the sort of the biggest part. Oil prices rose 30% initially from 25 to 33 per barrel. You can see over time oil prices are going up the whole time because it was 3 to 12 in the Yom Kippur War. Global economy was in an expansionary phase and the U.S. avoided recession. In 2003, GDP grew 2.8%. Inflation remained low and mortgage rates were 6%. Housing market, home prices boomed. Home prices boomed with median prices rising from 186 to 246.5, a 32% increase in 3 years. Okay. Driven by low interest rates, loose lending, and economic growth. The war had minimal direct impact on housing. 2008 crash was unrelated. That was subprime lending and financial excesses. Now, Juana, we were doing real estate during this time, 2003 to 2006. Was it just, people always say, but you're realtors. You guys, you always are trying to say home prices going up. Guys, we don't care. If you sell 100 homes in a year when home prices are going down 5% a year, or Wanda, you sell 10 homes when home prices are going up 5% a year, where do the agents make more money? In a declining market selling 100 houses or in a rising market selling 10 houses?
We make money the more transactions we do. The price is not relevant to us. Price
is not relevant. So we're just giving you, we're telling you, actually most of the sales we made were from 2006 to 2012, 3,000.
Right.
And home prices were dropping like a tank. And we wouldn't have told you home prices were going up.
Nope.
We didn't really care what they were doing. We were just selling every house we could get as fast as we get our hands on from the banks, right? Okay. The last one we're going to talk about is started in 2019. There was this Israel-Iran escalation from 23 till now, basically. But it was a 2019 attack against Saudi Arabia's private, at the time, I guess they were privately owned at the time. They weren't a public company. 15% oil spike, prices normalized within a couple weeks. We did see some prices go up from the most recent Israel-Iran escalation that we've been basically living through for the last year and a half, since October of 2023, right? Housing market, 2019, median home prices grew from 313 to 327, up 4.5%. And then we all know that today, remember, so in 2019, median home prices were 313, now they're 412. They're up $100,000. So they're literally up 30% over the last 5 years. Now, Wanda, we've also had inflation.
Right.
During that time.
Right. So
how does that affect?
Well, inflation, like I said before, it makes everything go up.
Okay. Let's pretend this is a minor regional skirmish. What do you see happening?
Okay, so providing that this either gets resolved or doesn't escalate, in the short term, not much happens. I think everybody kind of pushes the pause button and kind of waits to see how things shake out. So you might, depending on your marketplace, maybe you might see a little bit of softness in the sense that maybe buyers are kind of on the sidelines for a couple of weeks, waiting to see what happens. But the whole world is kind of sitting on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens. It's not just the buyers in your neighborhood, right? And then after people kind of get over the initial shock of the whole thing, and maybe there's some sort of path forward, then life kind of resumes. Well, what does life resuming look like, right? You're going to have, in the short term, we're going to have some turmoil in the equity markets, and we're going to have some turmoil in the energy markets. But again, it all kind of shakes out in the just a couple weeks, and then life kind of sort of moves forward. If nothing much comes of all this, then what we can expect is everybody kind of keeps on trucking. We all just get on with our lives. If the situation doesn't get if the situation heats up more, which is a possibility, it's not likely, but it's a possibility, then what you might see is it's possible you'll see more inflation because the government's having to spend money on weapons and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So depending on where you are in the country, this could be good for you, right? If you're maybe in Northern Virginia, or maybe you're in San Diego or someplace like that.
Or you own stock in Raytheon or Boeing.
Or you own stock in Raytheon or Boeing, or some weapons manufacturer, then you might do quite well. Yep. The rest of us are just going to still get up in the morning, go to work, and so will you. And life for us is going to continue. We might see the cost of goods go up. Like I said, inflation, energy costs go up, so prices going up at the gas pumps, and you might see builders maybe pulling back a little bit because of added expenses to build homes. So what does that mean? Well, if builders pull back a little bit on building more homes, we're already short several million homes, whatever number you want to use. 4.5, 3.5, 5.5, whatever million of numbers that you want to use for homes. We know that we're short millions of homes. We know that for sure. So if builders pull back, then that means that less homes will be built, and that over time, all that means is that the price of housing will continue to increase at maybe a faster rate, because we're still growing as a country and people still need places to live. And so you're going to have, again, more buyers than you have homes available. And if builders don't build as many homes, there will be less new homes to buy. So that pushes people into resale. And that's where you get into having to bid for a home. So in the short term, you can expect people just kind of pausing and waiting to see what happens. In the long term, what you can expect is homes appreciating. That's kind of the long and the short of it.
Yeah, I think the next few years is just going to be a lot of some markets dropping, of course, markets that were overbought, or there's just a lot of inventory.
But that has nothing to do with Iran.
No, but I mean, it's just, this is added. This is just one factor. Right. This is one factor to the thing. I don't think any of this is going to affect us in the U.S., honestly, very much, because the biggest shock always was oil. We were a huge importer of oil in the 70s and 80s, and we're not as much anymore. North Dakota, Texas, they have the ability to ramp up. I think the number was like during the, or it was Aramco or whatever, we boosted production 10%. Like literally within weeks, we were pumping more oil, and it had very little effect for us here in the U.S. Bottom line is this: if you're going to buy a house, you're qualified, you find the house you want, buy the house. If you don't need to buy a house, don't go buy a house. If you don't need to sell your house, don't sell the house. But if you need to sell your house, then sell your house.
Right.
Like trying to, people get caught. I think it's a pride thing. I think people want to say, oh, I sold my house at the perfect time, like right at the peak of the market. But there's no peak of the market. If you go back the last 100 years, the market's basically housing market's been going up. It's like the stock market. Like there were people back in February go, oh, the stock market is starting to tank. And here we are in June, and S&P 500 is higher than it was back in February, when people were like, how could it be higher? We were sure it was going to be worse because of tariffs and all this other stuff.
Right.
So bottom line is you don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But, 70% home price crash because some crash bro made up a fake chart misrepresented everything. And I'm sure this is going to happen with all this nonsense. They don't know anything about global economics or any of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so put down in the comments what you think is going to happen, and then what is your bet regarding interest rates for the rest of the year? Is the Fed going to leave them unchanged, or is the Fed going to play with them a little bit and maybe drop interest rates sometime this year? With all these changes regarding Iran, I think it's anybody's bet. So we want to know what you think. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.